Lovely Sunday festival morning. Normally at this time of year, the festival would be into its second day. And there'd be a few hangovers, dare I say. Not many, and most certainly not by me, because it's quite stressful, really, having a hangover and trying to run a festival. I'm Kim Waters. I am the Chief Exec of the Food Festival, and I'm delighted today to invite some people who've become great friends, actually, who are doing some wonderful work up in Crickhowell, and also a fabulous chef and restaurateur up there in Wiltshire, Ollie. So David and Catherine, Ollie, thank you very much for attending. We're going to show everybody a video in about a couple of minutes' time to give them a flavour of one, David and Catherine's fabulous farm, and also a flavour, unfortunately not a real flavour because we can't do it today, but Ollie's cooking, but you'll see it, and I'm salivating just thinking about watching it. But first of all, just introduce yourselves, David, Catherine, and Ollie. So we'll go with David and Catherine first.
Yeah, hi, we're David and Catherine from Langton's Farm. We set up a market garden in Crickhowell this year, and we're now providing veg boxes to about 30 different families a week. And you'll see the farm in a minute.
Cool, and good morning everyone. My name's Ollie Hunter, and with my wife we've got a pub in Wiltshire in Chiltern Folliot. It's called the Wheatsheaf, and for the last 5 years we've been on a journey to make it the most sustainable place in the country, which we sort of won last year from the SRA, and it's been an amazing journey, and I'm so glad to be here at Abergavenny Food Festival.
Well, thank you all. So we're just going to kick into the video now, so you'll get a real flavour of Ollie's cooking and the farm. Just to say also that David and Catherine, the thing that amazed me about this is that David and Catherine started this in March. That's March 2020. So I'm sure you'll be pretty impressed. So let's move over to the video, and we'll join shortly.
So we started our microgreens business last year. We were selling to about 30 different restaurants. We started that in our bedrooms, we didn't have any land. And then we rented this 3.5 acre field. And on this bottom acre, we are growing vegetables. So in April, we planted potatoes. And then in May, we put the polytunnel up and filled that. And then in June, we did these beds here. We're now selling about 30 veg boxes a week to the local people. So we've got about 250 egg-laying chickens, and they're not ready to lay eggs yet. They're pullets, so they're baby chickens. At the moment, they're clearing some land for us, so we put some tarp down on the pasture, and then killed most of the grass, and the chickens are now in there clearing the last of it, eating all the bugs, fertilising, and then we're going to add some compost on top and plant straight into the ground.
Here we are on the beautiful and incredible Langton's Farm, which they only started back in March, and they've already achieved a phenomenal amount of beautiful produce and work. We're going to cook off a beautiful lentil dal. We're going to use the beetroot tops of the dish. So we're going to save the beetroot for a completely separate dish, and the beetroot tops are going to add the lovely zingy, floral, leafy notes that we might use instead of spinach or chard. So go straight in there, and we're going to use an onion. Lovely, fresh, young onion, has great flavour. And I was going to repeat again, if it's fresh, it has life in it. If it has life in it, it has flavour. So that's why localness is so important, because it has flavour. And because it has flavour, I don't need to use 3 or 4 onions that taste bland or nothing from, let's say, a supermarket. But from a farm, it's going to be delicious, so I don't need as much. I'm going to use the whole onion, but just for this part now, I'm just going to use the bottom part. Slice it in half, and then create slices on my makeshift chopping board on this beautiful farm in Wales. Cool. This is a lovely cheap, just a rapeseed oil. It's organic, but it isn't cold press, so it's it takes a high smoking point, which is great for this sort of thing. A few clogs of that can go in there. It's going to be a bit more. I quite like an oily curry. I think that's why we sometimes we crave. Sometimes you can be a little bit naughty being vegetarian food. And oil is totally fine. It's got some great omega-6s, omega-3s in there. They can go in. I'm just going to get them cooking off, and a lovely sort of nutty brown flavour is going to come out. So one of the things I sort of picked up on curries is actually you want to bring the most amount of flavour out of these onions. And one of the key ingredients in cooking is time. If you were to go to an Italian nonna's grandmother's house in Italy, they've got that time to give to cooking. And time is such a crucial ingredient, because what we want to do is bring out all that sweetness and all those beautiful nutrients out of the onion by caramelizing them. And that's going to really impact on our curry. So they're going to sit there, caramelizing away, bringing out their goodness. And whilst they're doing that, we're going to prepare the rest of our vegetables. So we've got a great variety of garlic here. It's Ducote, or in Canada it's Music, which is fantastic, grown on this farm. And I'm going to get into it. All the good things in life you've got to fight for. Perfect. Just whilst we're on the top of garlic, they produce this beautiful long scape, long shoot with a scape at the end, and that can be used in cooking as well. I've got a great recipe for a salsa verde. But again, there's no waste in nature. Nature has byproducts, and the byproducts become something. So I think part of our new way of seeing vegetables and eating sustainably is about byproducts rather than about waste. Cool, so the garlic is going to go straight in. The onions are lovely and brown now. They've reached that caramelized stage, so we've got the natural sugars out, and the garlic can go in. They're happy in there. I've got some cumin seeds. I'm just going to put a couple of sprinkles of them in there. And what you want with the cumin seeds, you just release them a little bit, make them a little bit more soft and a little bit more relaxed about the whole cooking process. It's like giving them an extra drink on a Saturday night, just completely relax them. Bring out their nuttiness, bring out their spice, and then after 2 minutes, we're going to add the softer spices, the ground spices, and these don't need very long cooking. They just need to, again, just to release that initial flavour. So I've got a mixture here. I've got my own mix of turmeric, ground coriander, black onion seeds, and a bit of ground ginger, so they can go in. And with spice, you don't really need a lot because it's quite powerful stuff. And then finally, just a little bit of this as well. This is just a little bit of curry powder. It's a bit naughty for me, but I just quite like that flavour. So they're happy in there. Delicious lentils. You can use fava beans, you can use split peas, you can use any pulse you want. They probably all have different names, but I tend to use sort of either fava beans or lentils. Fava beans are great because they're amazing for the soil as a crop rotation. And also they're so easy to grow in this country. Otherwise they're beautiful organic lentils as well. And I'm probably just going to go a bit rogue on this and put a couple handfuls in. Give that a stir. Let the lentils meet all the spices. And now I was going to top it up with some water. So our lentil dals now are simmering away. All those flavours are meeting each other and they're relaxed. And now we're going to move on to the tomato. And the tomato is great for sweetness. It's so fresh and so delicious. We're just going to add that raw straight in. You can use canned tomatoes if you want, but if you've got a farm like this which is producing phenomenal produce, why not just use one beautiful tomato in this dish? It's got a little bit of a blemish, but it doesn't matter. The flavour is already here. We're going to take off the stalk from the tomato. The stalk has got flavour, and if you're making a gazpacho or a soup, you can leave the vines inside the stew or the soup, and that brings out what you might smell in a polytunnel or a greenhouse. Otherwise, that can go into the compost bin. We're going to simply cut the tomato, and depending on how big they are, you might go, you know what, that's going to be a beautiful tomato sandwich for me later. I might use that in the sandwich. And then the rest of this, can simply go into our dal. I'm going to pour that in now. There are definitely dimensions and specifications when you're cooking pulses and rice and all that sort of thing. Whilst we're out here in the beautiful countryside, all I've got is my eyes and what I can see, and so much of cooking is essential. So I know I can see from the lentils they're going to need a little bit more cooking, so we're just going to add a little bit more water. Now I'm going to prepare the beetroot stalks. A beautiful red bulb of beetroot can be left to its own devices somewhere else. It's the main ingredient, so that's what we prize after. So let's put that to one side and make use of the nature's byproduct, which is in this case beautiful beetroot tops. That zingy stalk with a bit of crunch, followed by the melt in the mouth greens. Very easily, just slice them thinly. And the thinner you slice them, the quicker they'll cook and the more relaxed they'll be in the pan. You can see I'm not being too fussy about what I'm slicing, because for me, all the flavors are going to marry together very well. So if you want to, for example, want to create like a sagaloo, so that's your spinach element in your curry dish, why not try a beetroot leaf aloo, as it were, and use up the whole vegetable. Instead of going straight to the supermarket aisle and open up a plastic case of spinach that's normally tasteless, go to a local farm, pick up a beetroot, use the beetroot somewhere else, and use the beetroot leaves in another wonderful, delicious dish. These can now go inside as well. Because they're fresh and delicious, they're going to release their own water, which is going to seep into the curry. And that water is also a holder for flavour. So earlier we used the younger part of the onion, which is absolutely delicious, but we still got this older part here, which again, if you've got compost, it can go straight into the compost. But for me, I'm a chef and I love using flavour, so for me, I'm going to use this in a dish. I'm going to make a little salsa to go on top of our dal. Very thinly slice this green onion. That's perfect. Again, this can be used in another dish, a pakora or a bhaji. Use it just like how you would onions, but do not throw it away. At the very, very worst case scenario, put it in your compost. That's going to go into my mixing bowl. I've got this lovely radish. What's the name of this radish? Don't know yet. Okay. We've got this beautiful radish. It's a little bit more fiery than normal radishes, but I'm going to just slice it up again thinly, mix it with the onions to create our salsa. Tops off, compost, or use it in the dal, or however you want. In half, and again, slice it nice and thin. And that's going to bring a lovely heat element to the dish. You can see by accident, by cutting up the beetroot stalks, I've sort of tainted the colour of the radish. But I don't mind that, I like that. That seems to be a lovely sort of colour addition. And then finally, just for that extra sweetness again and a bit of zing, I'm going to go back to the original tomato that I didn't use. Maybe just put some of that for my sandwich later. And then this can go to make the rest of the salsa. Give that a stir. Just a little bit of oil. And you know what? One of the beautiful things about cooking is allowing different flavors to meet. And sometimes letting time to bring out that combination really helps. So with a salsa like this, it doesn't want to be too long, but just giving it a little bit of a mash or a push around will just allow the onion to meet the tomato to meet the radish, and suddenly we've got a great big party going on in there. I'm really happy with the lentils. They've still got a bit of bite to them, but they're lovely and soft. The flavours all working very well. And you can see all the different textures going on in there. The sweetness from the tomatoes have got a really rich colour. And then finish it with our wonderful salsa, a bit of fieriness from the radish, but also a bit of sweetness and a bit of zing. And finally, just finish it with a bit more cold pressed oil. Beetroot leaf dal, straight from Langton's farm.
Hi. Oh God, I'm salivating already. Ollie, can you send some down? That'd be great. That was wonderful, and I don't know, it just gave me a great flavour of what you guys are up to. Let's just talk a little bit about the challenges of this time. David and Catherine, let's go with you first. You started in March, and there's a long winter ahead of us. I know you're already delivering veg boxes to the great people of Crickhowell. What are the challenges you see in the next number of months?
So we're learning to grow winter veg in the polytunnel. So that's going to be interesting. We've done it before, but not quite on this scale. And the challenge of, so we started planting into the ground in April and mainly in early May. So we've missed like your typical winter veg, so your Brussels sprouts, your parsnips, some of your Savoy cabbages and stuff. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, we're really looking forward to it. And also the fact that the bottom half of our field floods in winter. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see where that goes and how much water comes.
Fabulous. Ollie, how about you? You're in the restaurant trade, chef, restaurateur with your wife. Challenging times, but I was so impressed when we first met. Number one, I personally have taken on board this whole issue of wasting nothing. You know, those spring onions that I would sort of cut the nice bits off, what I thought were the nice bits, and they are, of course, and discard the rest. Nothing's going to waste in the Waters household, I can tell you. But you've got lots of challenges. I'd love to hear a little bit too about your business, of how you've managed to actually improve profitability in your business by going organic and wasting nothing, from what I can see.
Yeah, it's been, as I said earlier, it's been a phenomenal journey. And we knew we wanted to be the most sustainable. And during that process, we sort of signed up to the Soil Association. And as a result, they've got their own program to, I guess, investigate what we use. So we had to improve our suppliers, and we had to improve the people we looked to get our produce in order to get their accreditation, which was a challenge in itself, just to find local, good local organic people. So, this whole thing about organic, there is a challenge definitely in looking for it, but actually the looking process is the exciting part as well. And when you find them, they become friends for life. I'm sure, as you've already achieved with David and Catherine. So the really big change in our life in the pub was actually getting a great veg supplier. We got into a local farm called Coleshill Organics, a lady called Sonia, and she's providing us with organic vegetables. And the real change was actually in the salad, which sounds weird, doesn't it? But because the salad was so fresh and picked that day, and great varieties, it was so delicious. And when I was even just using it as a garnish on a plate, it set me aside, it put us, it made us unique away from other restaurants, because I think most people tend to use those sort of plastic bags, and the salad's a bit watery and tasteless. And to be honest, there's not really much point at being on the plate, but suddenly there was purpose and flavor on the plate. And going through that whole use of organic vegetables, it was just amazing, the change in flavor. When they're picked freshly and when they're local and when they're organic, there's so much flavor in these vegetables that they're like the cornerstone of any great cooking. They're the foundations that build up your flavor palette through the dish. Anyone can, I think, personally cook with meat because it has been spent so many months and years sort of creating flavor in its body. And same with fish, really. But to create great vegetables and then to cook them perfectly can be a real art, but also a real joy. So yeah, we're talking about business, is that because the vegetables have flavor, I don't need to use as many of them. And as a result, and because I'm using the whole plant, like I showed in the video, the beetroot leaves is the whole root to fruit analogy, that I'm now spending 20% less on the pretty much all our produce across the pub, which has been great for obviously profits, but it's great for the suppliers and it's great for the people out the front and the customers who get organic vegetables at the same price as they would in any other pub.
Fabulous. If back to David and Catherine, try, and I know this is difficult because there are so many challenges in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. What do you think your business might look like in 3 years' time in terms of the variety and the issues you'll be addressing? Just paint us a picture. We won't hold you to it, but I've been so impressed with the approach you've taken from a business plan perspective, and really trying to think through your whole productivity story, really, that you do things well, you do them simply, and you just get things done. But paint a picture for us 3 years' time at Langton's Farm.
So we want to be able to provide most of the fresh food that you'd want to get seasonally from a supermarket. So that starts with vegetables, but it is also going to lead into eggs, chicken, pork. Our landlord raises organic beef. So yeah, we want to, and we intend to do cut flowers, organic cut flowers. So we want people to be able to come and have a huge sort of supply of fresh food, rather than having to come and get one type of organic product from us and then still have to go to the supermarket and not be able to find the organic range that they want. And we also sell some of our stuff through Natural Way, which is they're organic certified. I think they're 95% or something like that. And they supply a lot of dry foods. So between the two of us, you should really be able to get most of your organic food shop.
And they also do cleaning products as well, so it's almost bypass the supermarkets.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, Ollie, same for you, really. Apart from being an author now with a fabulous first book, I seem to remember there's a second book coming next year. Is that top secret, or I've just mentioned it, so it's no longer top secret. I think a second book is coming next year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Early February, I think. That's all about. So the first book was all about the food revolution, and it's obviously not the whole A to Z sort of thing, but it's the introduction into how we sort of begin to think about sustainability. And the second book is all going to be about living sustainably, both within our homes, within our community, and globally, how we sort of vision connecting with other people around the world.
How about your business in 3 years' time? What do you see? Again, don't give any trade secrets away, but I was so impressed with the setup you have. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, running a business is a fantastic thing, isn't it? You know, you take on so much responsibility and you learn so much about yourself and about other people during the process. I think for us, what I hadn't anticipated, as we talked about earlier, was sustainability being an economic model, being a business model. And when we look at the sustainability throughout the pub, it's not just about the food, but it's about everything we run and every system we create to make the whole experience and the way we run it more efficient and easier for us as well. We've now got to a great stage where, I mean, just for give you an example, we installed an in-house still and sparkling system, filtered water. So, okay, first of all, that removes packaging. We don't have to buy more water or bottled water. So that removes the packaging and the transport element. It means that we don't have to bring as many bottles up from the cellar every night. So that makes it easier for our staff. And then thirdly, it's just obviously a great thing for water use as well. You know, we want to make sure that people are drinking the right amount of water for them. So not going to open up a bottle, which they may drink half of it or not. You know, we can then reuse that water somewhere else. So there's one tiny little sort of change in the business can make a massive effect for everyone going forward. So I think looking to the future in 3 years' time, I think we'd just love to keep progressing on that, you know, sustainable business, refine everything to its core. I've got plans to write more books, obviously, and just, I guess, I think the thing with the food revolution is that we need to talk about it as much as possible to make people understand that it's not a scary thing, but it's a really approachable, fun, and delicious movement. And it doesn't have to be what maybe the media or other sort of things make it seem as scary as it is.
You mentioned there, I have to declare an interest here really, because I'm pretty passionate about rivers and the state of our rivers. And there's been a lot in the media these past few weeks actually about the state of them, and it's appalling. I mean, I'm not, again, enlightening anybody in this. It is really appalling, and so much of that can come from agriculture and industry and just poorly managed systems. And I love this concept of the aggregate of marginal gains. And what you've just described there is a beautiful example of the aggregate of marginal gains, just a little bit of a change, and you've clearly thought about it in far more detail than I could, you know, a little change or a biggest change in terms of water supply, the difference it makes for your staff, the glass issues, the wasting of packaging. And I know there are, for every business, including mine actually, there are dozens of those little things that all add up to being significant. So that's beautiful actually. And I think, your book, I'm looking forward to seeing your book in February. It'll definitely be in the Waters household, I can promise you. I'd like to ask everybody out there that's listening in to fire questions into us. There is a chat and a Q&A box down in the bottom part of the bottom part of your screens. And if you want to fire questions in, we'll do our damnedest to answer. I'll try and moderate them if there's lots, and we'll feed in. There's a lovely question here from Justine Wheatley. And for both of you, really, let's start with Catherine and David again. Access to investment and building your business. I know, Catherine and David, you had a lot of support from the Our Food group up there in Crickcowell with Duncan and team. And again, that's been an inspiring story for me. What challenges do you face on that? Let's on the financial side of just making some of these things happen.
So we were able to access a loan and grant from the Conservation Farming Trust, which is the charity, well, the trust that
runs the Our Food Crickcowell project.
So that was a huge help for us. They approached us. I think sometimes it's a case of knowing what you're doing with applying for funding, and I think it was quite difficult for us as new entrants, new into all of this. But there is funding out there. Sometimes you have to fit quite a specific criteria to be able to access that. yeah, that's something to look into, I suppose. We are interested in more funding, and that'll be a challenge going forwards that we're going to have to address.
Yeah. I know, just staying with you for a moment, I know we've been talking about trying to identify more land. There's a few questions. The questions are coming thick and thin now, actually. And I know finding your piece of land, I love David and Catherine's story because they started making micro veg in their bedroom. I think that's a wonderful tale. And I've seen these LED lights, I guess they were at one point. It looked, quite a sort of science, sci-fi based thing. But the whole land issue, I know that was a challenge to begin with. And just to let everybody know too, there's some positive signs in these parts. If you listen to the food and agriculture debate yesterday, there's some good debates going on about getting land to young people to start farming. So we can follow up on that at another stage. But tell us your story about getting land.
Yeah, so we can address a few of these questions. As far as land goes, it took us around 18 months, and probably in the last few months we had 3 or 4 options to pick from, and we picked what we felt was the best for us. And since then, there's been at least 3 other people who have seen our farm and what we're doing there, and are interested in a similar thing happening on their land. So I'd say there's definitely land out there. It's making people aware of what could happen on it. There's definitely land there, but linking that with entrepreneurs and people, young farmers and people wanting to start sort of small enterprises, that's the challenge, definitely.
Yeah.
And also going on the question on pests, we haven't had too many, to be honest with you. I think that's partly due to the fact that we're brand new in the field.
Vegetables haven't been grown on it before, or for a very long time if they were grown before. So the pests aren't already in the ground or in the area. But I think that going forward, we're going to have some more problems as they arrive, and we'll deal with that with like adding biodiversity to the site. We'll bring in the predators for those pests. So another way we're dealing with pests is with slugs. We have a small flock of Indian runner ducks who absolutely love slugs. So they're moved around the vegetable patches, eating the slugs.
Yeah, when I was up at your place, I love that. I want to come back in a second to some questions, but I want to also ask Ollie, especially with from a business perspective, there's a lot of commentary at the moment about build back better and greener. If there was a few things, I'm putting on the spot here, Ollie, actually, if there were a few things that would help your business to be able to invest in your business, to be greener, to be more sustainable, does anything come to mind at all of what would really help? So I'm imagining, I'm maybe stealing your thunder here a bit, but I'm imagining you saying, buying this filtration system and maybe rather being charged 20% VAT on it, something much less, or something to incentivize you. Anything obvious in your future business plans that can help?
So for example, the in-house filtering system, they've got we have monthly repayment systems now. So that's helped so many people, hasn't it, over the last how many years, accessing bigger capital investments over a period of time. So that's a great scheme. As we talked about grants, also there are lots of grants out there for people to access, and it just requires time and clearly thought out. Create a purpose to why you're trying to achieve it. I think having to keep taking away some of those profits that you would probably put somewhere else, and you have to keep reinvesting. But when you do reinvest, you will reap the rewards much later, because you've got the infrastructure to go forward. From a governmental point of view, I'm a big advocate that I think there does need to be a VAT reduction on green credentials and green visions. There needs to be some sort of green incentive tax, for tax less, basically. the VAT change over the summer from 20% down to 5% has been a huge help for all businesses I know, and especially in the food and drink industry, because there aren't always the biggest amount of profits. So it's been a huge help for us. And I mean, if I was going forward, I would love to sort of promote this, as you say, a governmental investment back into businesses to really want to achieve that. I think even actually this opportunity to reduce the tax down from 20 to 5%, people can actually understand that and see how much it's affected the businesses. So I think that would be my big thing I would put to the government right now. Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. Somebody else is asking, I can't imagine who it is, but they're asking the title of your next book, Ollie. Does it have a title yet, or is it a working title?
Yeah. No, it's called Join the Greener Revolution.
Okay.
So the Green Revolution was in the 1950s, and it was not a good revolution because it was all about GM crops and pesticides and fertilizers, although it did huge amount of good by producing enough vegetables for people. So it did help protect people. But obviously now in hindsight, it's not such a good revolution. So it's the greener revolution that we want.
Fabulous. Love that. Catherine and David, just tell me, if you can, in a little sort of thumbnail sketch really of the productivity issue. When I first met Duncan and he was waxing lyrical about what you guys are up to. Just tell us a little bit about how you think about the layout of the farm. And you're young now, I'm not. I know what hard work does to a body. Well, not that I've done that much hard work, but anyway, that's another story. But you do have to think very carefully about making you sustainable to do this. Give us a few insights of what you've thought about and how you've gone about it.
Yeah, so the farm is laid out in a way where there's like a central location where we do like packing and washing, and then all of the vegetables are kind of grown out from there. So there is a question about a permaculture approach, and that's kind of like a permaculture approach where you have a zone 0 and then a zone 1 and everything's out from there. Yeah, everything's really efficient. So we have all of our beds are 75 centimeters wide, which is very common width for beds to be. There's lots of tools that are that width that make it really efficient. That we can step over them rather than having to walk all the way around them. Yeah. And
it's no digs, so
yes, that's important to tell us. Yeah, I was fascinated by that. Yeah. Yeah, pray tell more.
Well, I'm sure if there's a few gardeners listening that have probably double dug their beds. It's hard work. We've done it. Never again. So yeah, we're able to disturb the soil the least amount possible. So when it comes to carrots, we literally just pull the carrot out of the ground. With all the crops, we pretty much just pull them out of the ground.
Even the potatoes, we just pull the stem and the potatoes come up. There's a little bit of rummaging around with our hands, but there's no digging.
So yeah, it's just super easy in terms of the backbreaking. I think the hardest work there probably is the initial setup of the beds. Involves, I mean, for our whole farm overall, it'll involve quite a few tons. We're talking sort of 100 or more tons of compost, and then we've had 50-60 tons of wood chip delivered. So moving all that is by hand, forks, shovels, wheelbarrows, and that's by choice. So we could do it by tractor, but that would or other machinery that would compact the land. We're running 75 centimeter beds, 45 centimeter paths, so it's difficult to have. You can't have a tractor that drops precisely only in 75 centimeters. A wheelbarrow is actually almost, it's difficult to get it precise with a wheelbarrow. So yeah, that's probably the hardest part. And then obviously making compost, you have to turn it over. We're really lucky. So our closest farm neighbour just happened to have a compost turner on his tractor in the field next to ours. That was just pure coincidence, and he turns 2 of our 30-meter compost rows in minutes, and that's a real blessing for us, because would be, backbreaking.
So the regenerative farming and then the permaculture questions. Yes, we would call ourselves a regenerative agriculture farm or farm scale permaculture. So we use the no-dig system, we use mulches, we use animals like the Indian runner ducks as slug control. We're all about building soil and building biodiversity to work with nature and not against it.
And just to touch on the Kistagram movement, I think that's something that we'll be looking into. We have been sort of messaging someone back and forth regarding potentially getting involved with that. Just to answer that question a bit.
There's a movie that comes out tomorrow, maybe on Netflix.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about it, but there's a Kiss the Ground movie that's coming out. So.
Okay, then we shall be signing up for that. Ollie, we're coming to the end now, and just give us a few little insights, if you can, about your greener, sustainable future at home as well as in the kitchen as in the business. Any great tips you've got for us? Well, apart from, I am an utter convert now. I look at leaves going up the compost, and I'm normally swearing to myself. No, I'm sure there's a use for those. I have to tell everybody, I wandered around Ollie's garden with him actually, and it was lovely, and there wasn't a leaf that wasn't tested. Even the fig tree, Ollie sort of picked a bit from me. He says, "Taste that," and it was just fantastic. Nothing goes to waste.
Yeah, well, if you want to learn more about living sustainably, you're going to have to buy the second book. Yeah, on that one. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about the whole movement, is that it is a really easy movement, because what we're trying to do is do more with less. And when we open up our eyes to the abundance around us, as you said, like, there is so much in nature that's for free. I mean, look at nettles. They were brought over by the Romans. They're a pest to a lot of people, but they are so nutritious and so delicious. So it's about trying to have knowledge available. And I think that this movement needs to come from all angles. So all celebrity chefs need to be talking about it. Everyone in every industry needs to be talking about it, because it's a really easy and accessible movement. And I think, as we were talking about earlier, it's all the little decisions we make. That's the really big thing. It's not these big, scary changes we're trying to do. It's every tiny little decision that we make every day that builds to the bigger picture. And when you've got 8 billion or 7.7 billion people making all these tiny little decisions all the time in a positive direction, that's a phenomenally positive change. And that's what's so exciting about it, is about this whole thing, is that it's not scary, it's really easy, and it's really doable. We just all need to give ourselves, and I guess that's what lockdown showed us, is that little bit of space and that time to access the energy to make these decisions every day.
That is utterly wonderful. The aggregate of marginal gains stays with me a lot, and I think all of you actually are just wonderful examples of this. So again, I'm going to put you all on the spot now. I'm inviting you to next year's food festival. I would love to hold an event at David and Catherine's in the field, and I would love Ollie to be around to come to the festival and to get involved with cooking something on that farm, and other stuff as well, Ollie, in the main festival itself. So let's hope that we see a better 2021 than we've seen 2020. You truly are inspirational, I promise you. I've been so impressed with what you guys are up to, and more of that, please. Lots of people are asking for how to get your boxes, David and Catherine. All I can suggest, really, if you go onto the Google and do Our Food Crickhowell, you'll see a truckload of stuff on there about Catherine and David's place. And if you're anywhere near the M4 humans, I can tell you to pop down to Ollie's place, which is near Hungerford, for some great food, some great company, and a lovely environment. It's got to be done. It's definitely on my route anyway. Thank you so much. Really appreciate, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021 in person and on the farm. Take care, folks. Thank you.
Thank you very much.